What is the difference between connected and isolated passed pawns? Have you ever wondered about the dynamics of passed pawns in chess? Today, we will break down the difference between connected and isolated passed pawns and how they impact your game. First, let's define what a passed pawn is. A passed pawn is a pawn that has no opposing pawns blocking its path on its own file or on adjacent files. This means it has a clear route to advance towards promotion. Now, the distinction between connected and isolated passed pawns is all about their positioning and the strategic advantages they bring. Connected passed pawns are two or more passed pawns that sit on adjacent files. This positioning allows them to support and protect one another as they move forward. The strength of connected passed pawns lies in their ability to create threats together. In the endgame, they can often force the opponent to sacrifice material to stop their promotion. When connected, these pawns can form a solid structure. For example, if one pawn is attacked, the other can step in to defend it. This mutual support is what makes connected passed pawns particularly strong. They control key squares on the board and can restrict the opponent's pieces from getting too close. However, it is important to note that the backmost pawn in a connected chain can be vulnerable if it is not protected by another pawn behind it. On the flip side, we have isolated passed pawns. These are passed pawns that do not have any friendly pawns on adjacent files. This lack of support makes isolated passed pawns more vulnerable to attack. While they still pose a threat of promotion, they relying heavily on piece protection and careful maneuvering to advance. Isolated passed pawns can be seen as weaknesses in pawn structure because they can be targeted and blockaded by the opponent. However, they can also offer dynamic advantages. For instance, having an isolated passed pawn can lead to increased activity for your pieces or create opportunities for aggressive attacks. If handled correctly, these advantages can sometimes outweigh the structural weaknesses. In summary, the key difference is that connected passed pawns work together, providing mutual protection and strength, while isolated passed pawns stand alone, making them more vulnerable but potentially offering dynamic play opportunities. Understanding these differences is essential for effective pawn structure strategy and can significantly influence your endgame play.